Yeah, it's a figurative moonshot. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it now. Every first Saturday of October, the city of Paris transforms into an open-air art museum. It's called Nuit Blanche, which means sleepless night. That means that every year, Parisians engage into this wide artistic event where they lose sleep over thought-provoking art. And the installations and performances are disseminated throughout the city in museums and improvised museums. Last year, I was a research fellow in digital humanities at the Center for Research and Interdisciplinarity in Paris. And I wanted that year Parisians to lose sleep over empathy. I wanted them to lose sleep over what it means to put oneself into the shoes of another. So we opened the doors of a research center and invited Parisians on an artistic journey on empathy. And from the inception of the project, I knew I wanted to blend traditional arts like dance and theater with digital art. That's why we collaborated with the Be Another Lab. How many of you have already heard about the Be Another Lab? It's an international collective composed of artists, technologists, and social scientists that use virtual reality to elicit empathy. A few years ago, in a Fab Lab in Barcelona, they have assembled what they call the machine to be another. So how does it work? You see, you have a symmetrical setup here with two people, two virtual reality headsets, two webcams mounted on the headsets, two computers, and a lot of cables. And the magic happens when the video streams are switched. So the two people actually get the opportunity to see what the other person is seeing. It is a simple but elegant expression of what empathy is. I was greatly inspired by the Be Another Lab, and so were the countless Parisians that swarmed to test the machine. This night, I learned several things. After Charlie Hebdo in January and before the November attacks, Paris had an enormous hunger for empathy, and most particularly for empathy through virtual reality. Actually, virtual reality allowed all of us to explore social issues that would otherwise have risen concern, skepticism, political division. Virtual reality could short-circuit all of that. But that night, I also learned that we were not quite ready to feed that hunger for empathy and to feed that hunger for virtual reality. That night, too many people left our research center unable to demo the machine. Actually, at one point, I couldn't let all the people in for security reasons, so I asked the artists to get out and hit the streets with their demo. And that night, I knew what I would concentrate my efforts on for the next months and years to come. Actually, pioneers like the Be Another Lab have already intuitively uncovered the transformative potential of virtual reality as a medium. Cyber psychologists and social neuroscientists have already proven in lab settings, in controlled environments, that virtual reality can make us more empathetic, that virtual reality can make us more helpful human beings in the real world. It can help us reduce racial bias, ageism, all the kinds of biases that plague our society today. Now the time has come to take this amazing work outside of art festivals, outside of the lab, into the real world, to have it hit the streets and make sure that we actually get it to the people that most need it. And that's what we started doing at XPRIZE for the Visioneers competition. We looked at how exponential technologies could help us address one of the most pressing social issues in the US today, racial bias. So how does that work? What does virtual reality got to do with racial bias? Mel Slater is a leading computer scientist in the field of virtual reality. He researches both at the University of Barcelona and at University College London. And his research has demonstrated that virtual reality can help us reduce implicit racial bias. He had Caucasian women take an implicit association test, and then he got them to take this virtual reality immersive experience. He got them virtual reality headsets, motion capture suits, and he put them into the body of a dark-skinned avatar. And from that standpoint, from that perspective, when they took the test, the bias was significantly reduced. In the real world, we live and form opinions about ourselves, about others, through a somewhat restricted cognitive lens that is informed by our body. Research in embodied cognition shows that cognition is deeply dependent upon the bodily features of a person. But you see, virtual reality can tweak the parameters. Virtual reality can have us identify with a wide variety of avatars, people that don't look like us, people that don't sound like us. Virtual reality can blur the line between in-groups and out-groups. Imagine a world where we would be freed from the limitations of our body that conditions the limitations of our minds. Actually, don't imagine it. We need this world to materialize right now. 71% of Blacks and 52% of Hispanics in the US report that they have regularly or occasionally suffered from discrimination and have been treated unfairly because of their ethnicity. Nearly half of all hate crimes have to do with race, according to the FBI. And this racial empathy gap has recently manifested itself into tragic episodes of police brutality. Unarmed Black men are 7 times more likely to get shot by police than whites. During the Visioneers competition, we were sponsored by the Roddenberry Foundation. Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek. And Gene Roddenberry said that Star Trek was such an iconic TV show because humanity had an enormous hunger for brotherhood. You see, seeing humans and aliens not only accept one another, not only tolerate one another, but actually cooperate and thrive together, that was inspirational for generations of viewers who live in a world where humans alone can be alienated just because of the difference in skin color, gender, age, political orientation, sexual orientation, or religious belief. In the very iconic episode, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, the Enterprise meets 2 aliens that are survivors from a planet that's torn by civil war. And actually, even when they're on the spaceship, they have only one thing. They only want one thing. They want to destroy one another. Why? Because one has a half black, half white face, and the other the exact same facial motif, but reversed. And during that episode, the Enterprise looks back on the tremendous progress that humanity has known for the past centuries. Chekhov says, there was persecution on Earth once. I remember reading it in my history class. And Sulu answers, yes, but that happened way back in the 20th century. There is no such primitive thinking today. As you know, we have a lot of work on our plate to make this statement true by the 23rd century. So we might as well just start now. Thanks to the XPRIZE ecosystem, we have secured contacts at the National Police Foundation at the Mayor of Los Angeles' office to test a pilot virtual reality application to reduce implicit racial bias in police departments. And we're going to make this happen. After having been inspired by the Be Another Lab, my way of paying it forward is to share and inspire other social entrepreneurs to make that digital transition, to make that digital conversion. Meet Karim Mokhtari. He's a social advocate for rehabilitation, and he coordinates anti-radicalization programs in French prisons. When I met him the first time, he told me that he started every session with a confession. He is a jihadist, but he practices the major jihad, not the minor. He practices the interior jihad, not the exterior. The interior battle against ourselves, against our jealousy, our greed, our pettiness, against everything that belittles us, everything that hinders us from bringing forth the highest manifestation of ourselves. He's written a book called Redemption, and it's a story of his life, from offender to social advocate for rehabilitation. He starts his workshops on rehabilitation by saying that he was in prison just like the offenders he's talking to. But when he got out, the one thing he wanted to do was get back in to help others break the cycle of violence. A lot of his workshops have to do with reducing biases, religion-based biases, stereotypes. And when I told him about the potential of virtual reality to address this challenge, to do this moonshot, he was very inspired and he was very excited. And now he wants to digitize parts of his workshops. That's what we will be doing in the next few months. Actually, I'm shamelessly recruiting. This is a moonshot, and we will need resources. So if you want to get involved in any way, I know that Emblematic Group, represented here by Aaron, has already expressed their interest, and we're very happy to have them. But please come talk to me if you want to get involved. Virtual reality can help us reach audiences we wouldn't reach otherwise. And the hard work and expertise of social activists like Karim can help us take this medium. Market forces won't take it organically. And to conclude on Star Trek, in Star Trek: The Next Generation, Captain Picard said, "We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity." See, virtual reality has an enormous advantage because it can make that work playful and it can make that work viral. Thank you very much.